Greetings, you guzzlers. But you're fecking English, fecking British, feck off back out of my country. Want a bit of freedom. I'm going to make a good old traditional Hairst Bree. And for that, because I've been down the lad's land and I've found some of his sheep and I showed them my little cleaver. And what I've done is I've got some chunks of that. Now normally, a bit difficult to get hold of meat, so this can be made without meat, but I'm making it with his meat. Well, not his meat as such. And what I'm going to do is just trim off all them fatty manky bits and giving him what he's like. Not like that on here. So we're just trimming that off, and I'm going to chuck it, not bother and chop it up. Now, if you've got the neck, if you've got the necks, bloody Angus nick the neck, just shove the neck in there. Don't worry about the bones. We're going to cook it all, and then you should fall off them bones. See, that bit can go in there like it is. So, this takes a long bloody time to cook. So, I'm just going to get this trimmed and get all them membrane bits off. Ooh, there's a big lump of fat in there. And get that in that pot. And then I'll tell you what we do next. Meat's in the pot. Now I'm going to add some generous sea salt. Got that out straight out the sea. Well, I didn't get it out of the sea. I've got it out from where the sea turned this into bloody salt. And then I'm going to add some black pepper, because some of you English obviously did a bit of trading and you've got some pepper, and we found it. We weren't raiding, it was our land you were bloody on anyway. And then what I'm going to do is I've got some chicken stock in here, any old stock I do, and I'm just going to chuck that chicken in. It's just over a litre. Quite progressive, us Scots, even though we're quite a few hundred years ago, we knew about litres, we knew about Europe. Right, so that's gone in there, and now all we're going to do is we're going to put the fire on, or we'll put it on the fire, and we're going to bring that up to the boil, and then we're going to simmer it in there with the lid on for an hour. That'll give me time to clean my cleaver and be bored. And then I've got some veg. I've got a turnip or a swede, cauliflower, lettuce, carrot, onions, spring onions, mushrooms, all freshly foraged, peas. Couldn't find any broad beans, but if you've got beans you put in. Basically whatever you got there, and will end up going in that soup. Hairst Bree. Basically harvest broth, also known as Hotchpotch. Oh, this heather ale's going down well. But anyway, don't spill the ale. So you bloody British heathens. The meat's boiling away, simmering away nicely. De-scum the top a little bit. Now, we're going to get prepared for the next stage. Still got about 15 minutes of that boiling away. So, got a carrot, and just going to peel it. And I'm going to do the same with my turnip or swede. Going to peel all that up, and then I'm going to dice my carrot. I'm going to dice my turnip. Swede, depending what you want. Oh, by the way, want peas in it. I can't find any bloody fresh peas. So get on there, you little shit. Bet that's fucking English mushroom. What was I saying? I've forgotten now. Bloody hell, another swig of heather ale. What's this heather ale I keep mentioning? Don't think that's going to do that. Oh, it does. Heather ale, it's sort of gone down in sort of mythological Scottish history. Can't do a Scottish accent. Heather ale was a deeply held secret. It was like it was an ale that was like well liked, but apparently the recipe was deadly secret. Now, there's various myths or stories about the final disappearance of the recipe, and this goes way back in Scotland's history, although some say it might be Irish. They basically say it was when essentially the Picts, P-I-C-T-S, were about to be wiped out. Well, that never happened, so we know that ain't true. But the story goes that the king wanted to get rid of these barbarians, these Picts, and so, but he also liked the heather ale. So he said, kill them all, but keep 2 of them. Got to keep 2 alive, because I want to know the secret recipe to heather ale. Got it cleaned off all that bloody stinking bloody. Better be careful, it's a bit slippery. Got me have my hand off. Not like that bloody Brit. That. So he basically got his wish. He got down to 2 men, and it was a father and son. Oh, that's nice. And he said to them, basically, one of them can live. One's going to die, but one can live. The one that lives has to tell me the secret recipe to heather ale. So the father says, if you kill my son, I'll tell you the recipe. Get rid of him. So that was the son gone. At which point, father burst out laughing. Gotcha. I'm never going to tell you the secret to heather ale. I don't care whether I'm the only person left who knows it. Bit worried that my son might crack in the end. And he said, and if I told you the recipe, he'd end up killing me to try and stop me. Couldn't trust him not to do that, so that's why I killed him. And you can fuck off, you're not having the recipe. And he jumped off a cliff and died. And so the recipe was lost forever. Well, was it? Now, early Irish legends refer to this heather ale, but they're, no I can't, no, I'm not sure I can say this, I don't know if this is Gaelic or what it is. Bjor Lochlanach, which basically, the word Bjor, or however it's meant to be pronounced, suggests it's a mead, not an ale. So it's still heather based, the flavour, but it was a mead, which does make a bit more sense. And actually, this heather ale that I'm drinking is actually mead. And it's not Irish mead, and it's not Scottish mead, it's Welsh mead. Right, I'm just going to get this board cleaned up a bit, and then we'll crack on getting this diced up. So, I thought that was hot then. It's a bit warm, but it's not hot. So I'm just going to turn the heat off of that. So that's boiled away nicely, and actually I've just noticed there is some scum around the edges, which conveniently is stuck to the sides, so I can get that out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to lift the meat out. Now, because these are quite big chunks and it's not actually falling apart, if it was neck and it's on the bone, you might find it started to fall off the bone, but it's not fully cooked yet. We're going to be cooking it for longer, so we're going to, or you could just tip it out through a colander, but you want to keep, pardon me, the broth. Oh, that was hot broth. Actually, the word Hairst Bree, I think I might have said, does actually mean it means harvest broth. Right, if there's any little bits in there, which I think that, oh, there you go, I've just got it. I'm just going to say it doesn't really matter because we're going to be chopping it up. So I've got you can have a frying pan or another kind of pan, but either way, at the moment, you want to move that out of the way. Whoops, spilling it, he says. Oh, that's still over the top. Don't touch the top, Chris. Now, the first lot of veg, so that's the turnip or swede, the carrot, the spring onions and mushrooms. We're now, and then basically these are oat cakes. Oat cakes are sort of like the stable sort of carbohydrate. We're going to have that with this soup, this harvest broth. So what I'm going to do, I made some caramel butter for another dish, nothing Scottish, but I'm just putting a generous amount of that butter into that pan, and I'm going to melt that down, and then when that's melted, we're going to take all that veg that's diced up, the button mushrooms, which are a bit fucking big for button mushrooms, I must say, fucking British. That's not swearing. It's this heather ale, isn't it? I've quartered them. Now I was telling you about I'll tell you a bit more about the Hairst Bree in a minute, but we were talking about the heather ale. Now the heather ale, like I say, the recipe was sort of lost. And then in about the 1500s, rumours emerged that someone knew the recipe. And that it was being made secretly by brewers. Oh, I thought the wife wanted to come in. She's gone outside. Water the leaks. I haven't got the art to tell her they're not leeks, they're flowers. So I've transferred that diced veg into there. We're just going to add a bit more butter actually because there's a lot of veg in it. And we're just going to let this fry gently. You know, keep turning it. We're just gently sort of frying it for about 7 minutes or so. And then, like I say, we've got the meat, and then we've got a collie. We only want half a cauliflower, half a lettuce, and some mint and some parsley. Now, if you're a bit posh, which I'm not really sure. Hang on, I'll swig a heather ale. As Highlanders would have had available. When you were boiling the meat up early, you could put bouquet garnet in there. I didn't have any, so we didn't. But you would need to remove that as well at this stage. So, heather ale. Told you, 1500s, they reckon they found the recipe. Unfortunately, a lot of wars going on up in Scotland. And so, as a result, apparently, it all went underground again and disappeared. And then in 1707, when the Brits had sort of basically taken over Scotland, as it were, or earlier they'd taken over Scotland, but in 1707, United Kingdom brought in laws, prescribed laws, and they basically said that drinks could only be brewed legally, as it were, with hops and malt. And since heather ale didn't contain hops or malt, it therefore was not permitted in the United Kingdom. Because remember, Scotland was part of the United Kingdom. Well, it's not, but whether they liked it at the time or not, they were part of the United Kingdom and it was banned. So heather ale sort of never re-emerged. But then in the late 1980s, a recipe appeared out of the ether. No one quite knows where it came from. No one quite knows how genuine it is. But this one man, Mr. Williams, claimed that he was going to make sure that this recipe was never lost again. It was going to be his mission in life to recreate heather ale authentically. And he toured around Scotland collecting different types of heather. Get in there, you little bastard! Fucking British fucking turnip. And quite how he knew which variety was going to give the right taste, I don't know, but this is basically what he did. He went around and he recreated what he said was authentic. Oh, getting a bit warm now. I'm getting invaded by flies, so I have to keep all doors shut, windows shut. So it's getting bloody warm in here. Oh shit, actually I need to be a bit careful. Get me tartan a bit too close to that fire. This is good old fashioned tartan made of polyester. Tell you what, I don't need that bloody sparker to light the grill. All I do is rub my tartan and touch it, and I bloody light it myself with about static generator. But anyway, so he recreated it, and in 1992 he finally brewed an ale which he claimed was the correct ale. Sorry, I'm just going to mop my brow and have a swig of the nice cold heather ale. And you can now buy it. What's the name of it? It's made by the William Brothers Brewery. Oh, what a convenience. Lianfrach, or something like that. And they're basically saying, like, you know, when you drink some of our beer, or ale, you're drinking 4,000 years of Scottish history. Well, it ain't that bleeding old, but there you go. So there you go, that's the story of heather ale. So I'm still cooking this through gently. So, might as well top up the ale. And then we'll move on to the next stage. That's still frying a little bit. Now what we're going to do is take our meat. We basically want to just chop our meat up. And actually this is not far off being cooked, to be honest. If you had got neck and it's on the bone, then you obviously need to get it off the bone. If it hasn't fallen off, you just want to remove it from the bone, and then we just chop it up fairly finely. And what you can do, actually, to be honest, it's all going back in that stock, but you can just chuck it in there with that in a minute. Just get it out of the way. So, I've said it several times, Hairst Bree, sometimes known by another name, Hotchpotch. And this would have been a potage, like a thick, healthy, hearty soup that basically would be made with whatever its hands. It could be any sort of vegetables, it could be even nettles, whatever sort of local herbs, and if there was meat. But meat was quite hard to come by, because basically the lords, you know, who stole our land and our freedom. Oh, ouch, try to take the fingernail off. they basically prevented you hunting, and so like the meat generally would have gone to the gentry. Bastard English. And as a result, when the Scots did actually get meat or an animal, they would tend to use every part of it. So not just the meat, but also all the offal. So haggis, for instance. Right, I've put my stock, as it were, back on the heat. And what we're now going to do is we're now just going to tip. Wait, I said tip it in here, not on the table or worktop. We're now just going to add all that veg and meat. And you can see straight away it's obviously a pretty hearty soup, as it were. Almost like building on a stew. So I'm just going to get that stirred all in. Now, if you were using fresh peas, you would put half of them in now. If you were using, because we're using frozen peas, the peas are going in right near the end. If you were having broad beans, which, like I said, we couldn't find, but the wife went shopping for broad beans, and the wife claims she couldn't find them. The wife don't like broad beans. Reminder of baked beans, she hates baked beans. So you would add the broad beans at this stage as well. In fact, you wouldn't have fried them, you would just put them in there, just like the peas will go in there now. So we're just going to bring that back up to the boil, and then that is going to simmer away for another 45 bloody minutes. So I told you all about Hairst Bree, am I? So anyway, towards the end of that time, we'll prepare our cauliflower, our lettuce and our herbs. And we'll have to get a bit more harvest ale, heather ale. So like I say, so 45 minutes, then we'll be adding the rest, another 30 minutes. That's next. Let's get down to the last bit. We're almost there, last half hour. So I've got half a lettuce here. So I'm going to take the amount of leaves off. And that manky looking stalk. And what I'm now going to do, I'm just going to shred this. Like I say, ultimately, you put in it whatever veg you had to hand. Like I said, it's like the oats were like the staple carbohydrate. When you got meat, you used every part of it, hence haggis. And it's actually believed that might even be sort of semi-Viking in origin. That they sort of like add the bits of like offal and that, and they stuffed it in the stomach. Again, they used to like take oats with them. So essentially they were taking food with them when they moved, whether they were Scottish, Viking or whatever. But it was all transportable, so that then when they got to wherever they wanted and wanted to eat, they could do it. Now what I'm doing with the cauliflower, I'm just basically dividing it back. I've been watching back some of the other ones, and I don't know how many times I've said basically. Excuse me. But I notice I say basically a lot. So all we're doing with the cauliflower is dividing that up into the little florets. We're not bothering to chop that up. And like I say, we're using half the cauliflower. So yeah, so that's possibly where things like haggis and that came from. Almost did it again then. Just simply thinking about, let's use every bit we've got. I can't afford to waste anything. But equally, you know, we need stuff that we can transport about. So that was sort of possibly the origin of stuff like haggis and that. Now, all my hair's getting in my face, so I'm mad. Now, the final thing that we're going to add at this stage is some mint. So I've already taken the stalks off, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to finely chop my mint. Now I've got some parsley there. The parsley I'm going to add at the end as a garnish. Okay, but at this stage we're just going to finely chop our meat, and so here we are, all ready to go. Quick wash my hands. So you might say actually Scottish cuisine ain't much, and in fact actually if you look, you know, there's not many things. However, there was a big French connection, remember, during the old alliance, Mary Queen of Scots and that. And Mary Queen of Scots, when she came back to Scotland, she brought loads of all her French entourage with her, including loads of chefs. And as a result, there's a lot of elements of French cooking in Scottish cuisine, as it were. And then during the 19th and 20th century, I'm just giving that a little bit of a stir. I have to say, I wouldn't say it's the most appetising of appearances. But anyway, now remember, if we had peas, fresh peas, we would at this stage be adding the rest of the, remember we added some earlier, if we were using fresh peas. Cauliflower on the floor. If we were using fresh peas, we'd now add the other half. But we're using frozen peas, so I'm going to add them in about 25 minutes. Now the final thing I'm going to add, a little bit of sweetness. Well, not sweetness, but I'm going to add about a teaspoon of sugar. Now I'm just going to mix all that in. Bloody hair in my face here. And we're then going to just put that lid on, and we're going to simmer it for another 25 minutes. And you can see, I mean, this is a, you know, we call this a soup, but it's essentially like a stew. I mean, it's not thickening, but there's nothing in there to really thicken it. And the quantities we're making here are for 2 to 3 people, but there seems to be really not here for 2 to 3. But you got to remember us Scots when we're out there marauding, kicking the fucking English off our fucking lands. We need a nice hearty meal to do that. So, lid's going back on. 25 minutes, where's my timer gone? And then what we'll do is we'll chuck the peas in, final 5 minutes, and then we're ready to eat. So anyway, I was saying, during the 19th, 20th century, lots of large-scale immigration from bloody hair. I need to redo my braid. From Italy, and then from India, Pakistan, Middle East. Trying to eat me bloody hair now. I can see a bit in front of me. And as a result, that had a big influence on Scottish cuisine. And so Italians introduced fresh produce, which pretty much was fresh, you know, we're using fresh produce here. But, you know, other fresh produce, and also then, of course, with India and things like that, more spices. And that sort of brings you up to date. So yes, Sassenachs. I've added the peas, like I say, if you have frozen peas. Add them towards the end. You can see this is a well hearty soup. Like I say, it's more like a bloody stew. So I'm just going to give that another 5 minutes. I've got my plates with my oat cakes on. I've got a bit more harvest heather ale, harvest bloody ale. I'm losing the plot. Now, I'm not going to add any more seasoning, but if you decide you want a little bit more salt or a little bit more pepper, you can add it at this stage. So like I say, about 5 minutes to go, and then we'll serve it up. I've chopped up my parsley, I'll sprinkle that on top, and then we'll do a tasting. Here we go, you bloody British, possibly Irish, possibly Welsh, but you're not Scottish. Hairst Bree Harvest Broth. Looks like it might be a bit bloody hot. And actually that's a bit of mushroom. So let's give it a bit of a taste. Oh, hang on. Got to be poosh. Got to add a little bit of garnish. It wants to be served hot. I've got a feeling this might be too hot. Oh, that is hot. You might want to cool it a little bit before you try it. I had some meat in that, I had some veg in that. I mean, it obviously doesn't thicken because there's nothing in there to thicken it. I took the lid off like last 10 minutes just to let it reduce a little bit, but the veg is still quite firm. I'm trying to think what the taste is. I think the chicken stock is coming through. But anyway, there you go. Hairst Bree or Hotchpotch. Your Scottish Harvest Broth. Enjoy.